All right. So, sometimes you just got to dive deep, right? I mean, you send us these amazing articles and papers and things, and we're here to sort of uh, sift through it all and find those real nuggets for you, the stuff that really matters without overwhelming you. Make it all make sense and click into place.
Yeah, and today's deep dive, it's a really fascinating one. We're looking at a blog post that really caught your attention, the Llama 4 herd,
Hmm.
the beginning of a new era of natively multimodal AI innovation. It's dated April 5th, 2025.
Yeah, exactly. And you were really intrigued by this whole idea of a new era, I mean, that's a pretty bold statement, right? Like, what does that even mean for AI? What are these Llama 4 models all about? And you love those aha moments. You're looking for the surprising facts, and trust me, we're going to find them in this deep dive.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. When you see a phrase like natively multimodal, you know something big is happening.
Yeah.
And as we unpack this, you'll see why these innovations could really change the game.
Okay, so Llama 4 herd. That tells me right off the bat, we're not talking about just one single thing. What's the big picture here?
You're absolutely right. Llama 4, it's not just one model. It's actually a whole suite, a collection of advanced AI models. And the core concept, the thing that ties them all together is this idea of being natively multimodal. So what does that mean for you? Well, basically it means these models are designed from the ground up to understand and work with different types of information all at the same time, like text and images simultaneously. Think of it this way. It's like learning to read words and understand pictures all at once, not separately, Not learning one and then the other and then trying to put them together later.
Yeah.
Much more powerful.
Right, yeah. It makes intuitive sense. Learn it all together from the start sounds a lot more like how we learn, right?
Mhm.
And these are open weight models. Now, what's the significance of that?
Oh, open weight. That's huge for the AI world. Basically, it means that the underlying workings of these models, the parameters, the things that control how they learn and process information, they're out there. They're publicly available. Developers can download them, use them, experiment with them. It really opens things up, allows for a lot more people to get involved, build on this technology. It's a real game changer.
So open access leads to more innovation, more people experimenting, creating new things. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So the post introduces three main models: Llama 4 Scout, Llama 4 Maverick, and then this preview of Llama 4 Behemoth. Let's start with Scout. What makes Scout special?
So Llama 4 Scout, it's a 17 billion active parameter model with 16 experts. Now, the active parameter part, that's kind of a technical detail about how efficiently the models work. But for you, the key takeaway is that Scout, it's considered the best in its class when it comes to handling both text and images together. It's more powerful than previous Llama models. And here's the kicker. It can actually run on a single NVIDIA H100 GPU, a high-end graphics card.
Wow, more power on less hardware.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing, right?
Definitely, definitely. But what's truly mind-blowing is this. It boasts an industry-leading context window of 10 million tokens. Now imagine having a short-term memory, a super-powered one that can hold and understand the equivalent of like several huge books all at the same time. That's what 10 million tokens allows Scout to do. For you, what that means is this AI can process and remember vast amounts of information, and it opens up all kinds of crazy possibilities, like summarizing massive research papers, having these super detailed and long conversations with the AI. It's really incredible.
10 million tokens. I mean, that's almost hard to even comprehend. I mean, previous models, they could handle just a tiny, tiny fraction of that.
Yeah.
And this is outperforming some pretty big names, right?
That's right. The blog post highlights that Llama 4 Scout, it's achieving better results than models like Gemma 3, Gemini 2.0 Flashlight, and Mistral 3.1 on various benchmarks. So yeah, it's a real leap forward in terms of its capabilities, especially compared to other leading models of a similar size.
All right, so Scout is the efficient one, the super long memory guy in its category.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's move on to Llama 4 Maverick. It also has 17 billion active parameters, but a much larger number of experts, like 128. How does that difference play out?
Right. So that jump to 128 experts, it's tied to this really clever design called mixture of experts. We'll explain that a bit more in detail later. But essentially, having more experts allows Maverick to be really good at a wider range of specific tasks. The blog post, it positions Maverick as the best multimodal model in its class. It's even outperforming models like GPT-4o and Gemini 2.0 Flash on a bunch of different tests. Pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, that's a big claim, outperforming some of the biggest names out there.
It is. And And here's another fascinating fact. Maverick, it achieves comparable performance to DeepSeek V3 on things like complex reasoning tasks and even coding tasks, but it does it with less than half the active parameters. So it's really highlighting how efficient and well-designed this model is.
So Maverick is the high-performing one, the all-rounder, punching above its weight. And it sounds like it's cost-effective, too.
Absolutely. It's known for its excellent performance in relation to the computational cost. And there's also mention of an experimental chat version of Maverick that's doing really well in head-to-head comparisons. People are actually preferring its responses.
Oh, yeah, it's scored really highly on the LM Arena, right? Well, what does that tell us about Maverick?
Right. So the LM Arena, it's this platform where people can anonymously interact with different language models, and they rate them. They rate the responses. And Maverick's high ELO score, it was 1417, which is really good. It indicates that people are generally finding its conversational abilities quite impressive, especially compared to a lot of other models out there.
Okay, so Maverick is not just, good on benchmarks. It actually impresses people
Yeah.
in real-world interactions. That's interesting. Now let's talk about this teacher model, Llama 4 Behemoth. The name itself, I mean, it sounds pretty powerful.
Oh, it definitely does. Llama 4 Behemoth, it's a much larger model. It has a whopping 288 billion active parameters, but still uses 16 experts. And its main role, its purpose, is to be the most powerful llama model they've developed so far. And really, it's among the most intelligent AI systems in the world.
So it's the powerhouse behind the scenes, and how does it actually perform? Like, how does it stack up?
Well, according to the blog post, Llama 4 Behemoth, it outperforms some of the top models out there, like GPT 4.5, Claude Sonnet 3.7, and even Gemini 2.0 Pro. And this is on a variety of benchmarks, especially those focusing on STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So it's really at the cutting edge of AI capabilities in those crucial areas.
Yeah, that's some serious processing power. But it's not available for general use yet, right?
No, that's right. Llama 4 Behemoth, it's still undergoing training. But here's why it's so important, even though it's not publicly available yet. It's served as the foundation, the basis, for improving the smaller models, Scout and Maverick, through a process called distillation. You can kind of think of it like a master craftsman, passing on their knowledge and skills to their apprentices.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the advancements we're seeing in Scout and Maverick, that partly a result of this massive behemoth model, this teacher model. All right, so now let's dive into some of these key technological innovations that you were so curious about. The first one mentioned is this mixture experts architecture. We touched on it briefly with Maverick.
Yeah.
But can you paint a clearer picture for us? Like,
Yeah.
how does this actually work?
All right, so imagine a traditional AI model. It's like having one giant brain that's trying to do everything right.
Okay.
But a mixture of experts, or MOE architecture, it's different. It's like having a whole team of specialists, each one focusing on a particular area of expertise. So for any given piece of information that the model encounters, it gets intelligently routed to the few expert subnetworks that are best equipped to handle it. So the model can have this massive overall capacity for knowledge, but it doesn't need to use all of it every single time. So it's much more efficient.
Right, so it's like having a huge library, right? But you only need to pull out the specific books that are relevant to the question at hand.
Exactly. So take Llama 4 Maverick, for example. It has a total of 400 billion parameters, but only 17 billion are actively engaged for any given input. So it's using the selective activation to achieve really high performance, but without the huge computational cost of having to activate all 400 billion all the time. Really clever design.
Yeah, that's a really smart way to combine power and efficiency. So what's the next big innovation? Native multimodality through early fusion. That sounds pretty complex.
Well, this is where the natively part comes in. So early fusion, what it means is the model is designed right from the get-go, from the very beginning, to process different types of data, like text, images, and potentially even video altogether. Instead of having separate systems for each type of data that try to combine their outputs later, the information gets integrated right at the start, at the initial stages. It's like, imagine watching a movie. You're understanding the story because you're simultaneously seeing the visuals and hearing the dialogue. It's a much richer, more connected understanding. And they've also made some really interesting improvements to the way they process visual information based on something called metaclip, which helps them understand those images even better.
So it's not just seeing a picture and reading a caption separately. the AI actually understands the relationship between the two right from the start.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty amazing. That's a much more holistic approach. So what about this Meta P training technique? That's another one that caught my eye.
Yeah, MetaP, it's a new method that Meta developed, and it's all about setting those hyperparameters during training. Things like learning rates, how the model's internal connections are set up initially, and they found a set of these settings that seem to work really well across different sizes of their models. So it makes the process of developing these massive AI systems much more stable and predictable.
Okay, so it's like finding a recipe that works whether you're baking a small cake or a giant one. Makes sense. The blog post also mentions this huge increase in multilingual pre-training data.
Yeah, they really amp things up there. Llama 4, it was trained on text from a whopping 200 different languages, and over 100 of those languages had more than a billion words each in the training data. So it's a tenfold increase in the amount of non-English language data compared to Llama 3. And what that means is you should see much better performance in terms of the AI understanding and generating text in a wider variety of languages.
Wow, that's a huge step towards making these models truly global. There's also mention of this FP8 precision and a massive 30 trillion token pre-training data set. I mean, those are some big numbers.
Yeah, they're throwing some serious resources at this. So FT8 precision, it's a more technical way of saying they're using a more efficient way to represent numbers during training, which speeds things up without sacrificing too much accuracy. And the 30 trillion tokens, I mean, that's more than twice the amount of data that Llama 3 was trained on. So it's an incredibly rich foundation of information for these models to learn from.
More data, more learning makes sense. Now, what's this mid-training for long context extension that they talk about? They say that's how they got Llama 4 Scout to have this amazing 10 million token capacity.
Right, so this is a really fascinating technique. What they did was they essentially continued training the model, but specifically focused on its ability to handle very, very long sequences of text. This mid-training phase, it used specific methods and data that were designed to kind of stretch its memory, but without messing up its overall understanding. And that's how they were able to achieve that incredible 10 million token context window for Scout.
Oh, so they didn't just train it once and call it a day. They had this whole second phase specifically for expanding its memory.
Wow.
Fascinating. And then this is a post-training approach. This sounds pretty sophisticated as well.
Yeah, it is. They used a combination of techniques after the main training was done. Things like fine-tuning the models on specific tasks, using reinforcement learning to optimize how they behave, and even a method called direct preference optimization, which is all about making the model's responses more aligned with what humans prefer. What's really interesting is this continuous online RL strategy. Basically, they're constantly evaluating the model and then using that feedback to refine the training process, focusing on those really tricky examples that the model struggles with. It's like a constantly evolving learning process even after the initial training is done.
It's never finished learning, right?
Okay.
And for Llama 4 Scout specifically, they mentioned some interesting details about its initial and final context lengths and this IRO-B architecture.
Right. So Llama 4 Scout, it was initially trained and then further refined using a context length of 256,000 tokens. So that gave it a really strong foundation for handling longer text. And the IRO architecture, it stands for interleaved attention layers without positional embeddings. It's a really clever design that helps the model maintain its performance even when it's dealing with these incredibly long sequences. And they also adjust the model's kind of focus during inference time, which helps it to stay coherent and make sense over those extended lengths.
Sounds like they really tackle this challenge of long-term memory and AI head on. And they also trained it on this massive amount of images and even some short video clips.
Yeah, absolutely. So this broad visual training, it included things like up to 48 images at a time during pre-training. It gives these models a much deeper understanding of the visual world, including things like how things change over time in videos, the relationships between different images. And Llama 4 Scout, it's particularly good at image grounding, so it can accurately link specific parts of an image to the words in a user's prompt.
So it can actually understand what you're referring to within an image that's pretty precise.
Yeah.
Okay, so these models they sound incredibly capable. When can people actually start using them?
Well, the good news is Llama 4 Scout and Maverick are available right now. You can download them on llama.com and Hugging Face.
That's fantastic. So developers can start playing around with them, building new things, and it sounds like Meta AI is already integrating them into their own platforms.
Yeah, that's right. You can actually try out versions of Meta AI that are powered by Llama 4 in WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram Direct, even on the web. So it's a really direct way for people to experience the power of these new models, in those everyday apps that they're using.
And that really brings it home, for our listeners, shows how these cutting edge advancements are actually translating into more intelligent, personalized experiences in the tools that we're all using. And there's this upcoming LlamaCon, right?
Yeah, LlamaCon is happening on April 29th, so it should be really interesting. They're expected to provide even more in-depth information about the Llama 4 models and probably some exciting new announcements.
Definitely something to keep an eye on for anyone who wants to dive deeper into this world. Okay, well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the Llama 4 models. It really does feel like we're witnessing a new era in AI. These natively multimodal models, they're pushing the boundaries in so many ways, from
Yeah.
handling those mass amounts of information to achieving these really impressive performance levels with remarkable efficiency.
Absolutely. It's been amazing to see the groundbreaking context window of Llama 4 Scout, the versatility and power of Llama 4 Maverick, and of course the foundational strength of Llama 4 Behemoth.
And for you, our listener, we hope that this has provided those key insights you were looking for, and giving you a clear understanding of what these developments mean without getting too lost in the technical weeds.
These models represent a significant step forward. They're addressing some of the core challenges in AI, and it's really paving the way for new possibilities, things that we can only just begin to imagine right now.
And thinking about that, thinking about models like Llama 4 Scout and their unprecedented ability to process and remember such vast amounts of information, it really begs the question: what entirely new applications of AI might become possible that we haven't even thought of yet? I mean, imagine the impact across all these different fields, like scientific research, education, creative arts. The possibilities are really endless. We we encourage you to explore those links we provided, learn more about these models, and really consider how these technologies might impact your own world, your own pursuit of knowledge and understanding.
It's a truly exciting time to be following the world of AI.
It really is. And thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
See you next time.